The Tar Heels are 1-0 on the young college basketball season, and there's a lot to learn. What should they keep doing? What should they stop doing? And what should they start doing to make this the most successful season to date under Coach Hubert Davis?
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, November 8th, 2023. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. Joining me today, as he always does, is our guy, Coach Pac Kilby. And we want to thank you everydayers for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listener or watch to get your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. Hey, we'd love to have a conversation with any of you out there checking in with us about Carolina basketball or anything else. Come join Pac and I in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, where we're having great conversation all the time. He and I are both very active in there, and we'd love to hang out and chat with you too. In fact, we could be having conversations like the one Pac and I are about to have on today's podcast. Basically, here's how we're going to break up our three segments, looking at kind of things learned from the first game. What are things that Carolina did that they should keep doing? What are things that Carolina did that they should stop doing? And what are things that Carolina should start doing that they didn't do? So, Pac, let's just dive right into that first one. We're going to have a couple things in each of these categories, but the first category is what needs to keep happening. And so the first one I'll throw out for us, Pac, is ball movement. Obviously, this is something we're looking at for Carolina to do infinitely better than they did last year, where they had an assist percentage below 40% in the first game. On Monday night, they had 18 assists on 32 made field goals, just north of 50%. What did you like about that, and what should they keep doing with it?
Well, I mean, it was just great for us to finally be able to see that ball movement, happen, play out in front of our eyes. It was really encouraging to me that I didn't feel like the assists were being created by one specific person. It wasn't like we had Cadeau go out there and drop 13 assists. It was just well spread out. Everybody was sharing the basketball, and a lot of unselfish play was, taking place on the court. I thought Cormac made some good extra passes on some shots that he could have taken, but instead passed up.
And he had 3 assists, 0 turnovers. You love that.
Yes, and the possession of the game that stands out to me was Cormac had a shot. He gave it up for the one more. We ended up moving the ball around, and it came back to him, and that's when he had the shot fake pop dribble, and he knocked the 3 down eventually.
Was it when he had to reposition because the guy came flying at him?
Yes, yeah.
That was a great call. Great call on that, Pac, yeah.
Yeah, that was the play that stood out to me, because that was everything we've been wanting offensively. Like, he started the possession with a look, probably what I would classify a good look. We moved the ball around. We got the defense shifted. We got him on a lift fake, and we got a great look. And that I just love to see it. I thought today in this game, we exemplified Carolina basketball.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled about that.
Yep. Agreed. This is the kind of thing we want to see. We want to keep seeing unselfishness, some good entry passes, good ball movement. Just keep doing more of this. You're going to learn to trust each other more and more and more. Pac, second thing that we want Carolina to keep doing is pushing the tempo. You talked about a possession you noticed. One I noticed early on was just RJ getting out and running in a way that he wouldn't have done last year, whether for whatever reason. And then I think he just stopped and popped mid-range and sunk it. And I just remember thinking, yes, this is what we want to see all season long. What did you think about Carolina's tempo that we want to keep seeing all season long?
Yeah, I think another possession that stood out to me was, and maybe you'll remember, Cormac caught it in transition on the right wing. And I mean, he instantly caught that thing and zipped it into Bacot in the post, and we got a layup off of it. And I just thought to myself, man, that is something we've been missing so much. Just even if we don't score off of it, we get an early paint touch, we collapse the defense, and we can play ball off of it. And so
And that's going to pay dividends throughout the game is kind of your bigger point there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Almost like in football where you're setting up that inside run or play action or something to benefit from it later on.
Yeah. And in this particular instance, we scored, but I mean, just the idea that we're doing that now and we're establishing that as who we are is huge. There's an argument to be made that we were a little sloppy in transition tonight. Yep. And that's okay. I can 100% live with that. We had some turnovers in transition. Okay, we haven't ran like this in the past couple of years. We've got to take time to figure that out, what that looks like in a live game play, managing our numbers in transition. Hey, if we're playing 4-on-3 or 3-on-2, let's go take advantage. If it's 3-on-3, we may want to set up and run our offense, So just figuring those things out, it's going to take time. But the fact that we had tempo, we played with pace, and it led to some good things early in our offense is huge. It's huge for us. And so definitely something that needs to continue to happen.
Yep. Last year at KenPom, who does adjusted tempo numbers, Carolina was 99th, already up to 55th this year. I think preseason he had them 60-something. I can't remember, and you can't really go back and look at that. But great to see. Something else I loved with the tempo is, man, Harrison is a freight train. Harrison Ingram is. And when I love seeing him grab a rebound and go a little rip and run. And there was one pretty egregious turnover he had leading the break. But outside of that, I love to see that. And that's only going to get better as they learn each other more and more and more. Pack, two more things that we want to talk about on things we want to see Carolina keep doing. Next is consistent shooting. It was a great first half for Carolina, great first half for Radford, honestly, shooting the basketball. But Carolina started off 5 of 5 from 3. 4 of those were by 4 different Tar Heels, Pack. Incredible stuff. But then for the game, Carolina shoots from 3, 35%, 7 of 20. And then from the field, 52.5%, 32 of 61. And so you like that consistency. Pack, what did you see on that shooting that you want the Tar Heels to keep doing?
It's like you mentioned, we started out hot and then we kind of cooled off a little bit and only ended up with 2 more threes the rest of the game after we made those first 5. But I kind of like that. Like, it didn't feel like we were dependent on that. We shot 23s. We hit 35% of them. And we got a lot of good looks from paint touches, transition, just getting to the rim. But we can do the three-point line. We can shoot the three-pointer consistent enough that it opens everything else up for us and everything flows through that. The ball movement that we talked about earlier is a big reason why we had consistent shooting. Just passing up good looks to get great looks. I thought we did a really nice job with that. And then, like you mentioned, 4 guys hit 4 threes to start the game, or a different 3 to start the game. So, Cormac's capable, Harrison's capable, RJ's capable, Wojcik is capable. And then there's guys that didn't hit one that are still capable.
Right.
Jalen Washington didn't really get out to the three-point line tonight, but he's capable of hitting them. And so several others. So I think just the sheer fact that we can shoot it consistently and we have multiple guys that can do it, man, it just makes us efficient offensively and tough to guard. It opens so much more up for us. I think tonight I saw, don't quote me on this, I don't know if it was the final, but at some point we were averaging 1.23 points per possession. And that is –
it finished at 1.284.
Okay. That's – for those of you that don't know, that is really, really good. It's efficient. It's very efficient, actually. And the fact that we're doing that is because we're consistent at shooting the ball. We're 35% clip from 3, and what it opens up for us to get efficient looks is just it's big time. So we definitely want that to keep happening. We want multiple guys to keep shooting the ball well, and if we do that, that's going to make us really, really tough to slow down
all season long. Yeah, and you and I were talking about it before we started. Radford was just hitting tough shots in the first half, and that tapered off in the second half. That's not going to be a thing all season long. Pack, the final thing we want to talk about in what Carolina should keep doing, let's just blow by this one, but just at least mention it, is that Carolina, we've been hoping for the bench depth to be real for the first time in the Hubert Davis era. And at least on Monday night against Radford, it was Coach Davis played 10 of the 11 scholarship players in the first half, and then obviously got James Okonkwo in the second half. All 10 of those guys that played at least 4 minutes. You love to see that. That's a really encouraging sign for the game. 9 of the 11 scholarship players scored at least 1 point. And so, I mean, it's that depth hopefully is going to continue to be a thing. So, Pat, moving on from what Carolina needs to keep doing, it wasn't a perfect game, as the first game of the season never really is. There are definitely some things that Carolina needs to stop doing. And so we're going to talk about that next in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode of Locked On Tar Heels is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Hey, you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like Meek Mill or comedian Andrew Schultz? You can find them now under Community Plays in the Promos tab of the app to view their entries from some of these biggest names in the Prize Packs community each week. With the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections as well. I love this. Football and basketball. You can combine some of this together from the Specials League. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, you could take a LeBron and Travis Kelce combo at 10.5, the addition of LeBron's threes plus Travis Kelce receptions for more or less than 10.5. I think that's super cool and a little of a wrinkle on a fun way to play it. Prize Picks really is the easiest way and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players. You pick more or less on 2 or 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. For example, Thursday night, the Panthers are in action. Bryce Young's passing yards is set at 222.5. Which way you going? I'd love to hear it. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Pack, we just talked about what we want Carolina to keep doing. At the same time, it's game 1. There's always going to be things that we want them to now stop doing. Throw it out. Don't let it be happening anymore. Of course, we'll still see it happen some, especially early in the season. But we've got 3 more things we want to touch on here. Pack, what is the first thing that you would like to see Carolina stop doing?
Well, we gotta cut down on the turnovers. I mean, that goes without saying. And look, it's the first game of the year. That's honestly somewhat to be expected. Even in the Roy Williams era, we always started the season high on turnovers. And as the season went on, we cut down on that because we got better, and it's something we worked on and emphasized. And you are what you emphasize. And so that's something I'm sure that Coach Davis is going to be emphasizing.
Sure. And
that we have to get better at. But I attribute a lot of it not just to being the first game of the season, but to playing with tempo when we haven't done that in a while.
Yeah.
And some have never done it, like Cadeau. I mean, not to say he hasn't ever played fast, but he's never played fast in college basketball. You know, that's a whole different world. And he had a few sloppy turnovers, and well, really the whole team did here and there.
But Pack, would you like if you look at it, Elliot had a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio.
Yes, yeah, and we will take that 10 out of 10 times,
especially in his college debut, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form dogging him. He just had a couple.
No, you heard it here first. Pat Kilby does not believe in Elliot Cadeau. He's an Elliot Cadeau hater. Go home with that. No, I'm just kidding.
No, he just a couple times he would jump to pass and just kind of get a little out of control.
He got bailed out on a couple of those. That's fair. That's very fair.
And the rule of thumb there is what we tell our guys: you jump to make a pass, not to find a pass.
Oh, that's a good phrase. Say that one more time so we make sure the people in the back heard it.
Jump to make a pass, don't jump to find a pass.
Love it.
And that's where we caught ourselves a couple times tonight. But hey, we'll clean that up. I'm not too concerned about it. We just need to keep playing with that tempo. And, you know, a lot of these guys, not just the new guys, but they're transfers. And it kind of went overlooked even until just now. I'm just now thinking of it. But that's their first time to play a basketball game together. You know, like Cormac coming from Notre Dame and Harrison from Stanford. Like, we're just piecing these guys together. it's not going to be perfect. There are going to be turnovers, and we just gotta clean it up.
Yep.
And that's okay. We don't want to be playing our best basketball right now.
Here's something that was encouraging to me about it, though, Pac. As I look back on the box score right now, no Tar Heel. Carolina had 11 turnovers. Nobody had more than 2, though. It was all spread out with 1 or 2 here or there, and that's really interesting to me. RJ had 2, Harrison had 2, and Elliot had 2. Nobody else had multiple turnovers. It was all spread out. And there's something to be said for, that means a lot of people had a turnover. But yeah, it means a lot of people had 1 turnover, and so that's really encouraging to me.
And if I remember right, I think 8 of
turnovers
were committed in the first half.
I can check that real quick. Yes, 8 in the first half, and then obviously only 3 in the second half. 1 from RJ, 1 from Ingram, and 1 from Jalen Withers. So that's another call too. Like, they really cleaned that up in the second 20 minutes.
Yes, and that's a big deal because if y'all remember last year, it felt like we would kind of establish a lead and then teams would catch up in the second half. And a lot of that is because we didn't use our depth the way we should have, but it was also because we kind of got sloppy. And this year, although it's young into the season, we're only 1 game, just the way we distanced ourselves in the second half was really good for me to see.
Yeah, I completely agree there. Okay, Pac, let's keep moving to our other 2 things that Carolina needs to stop doing. What's another one that you noticed that you want eradicated from the 23-24 Tar Heels?
Second chance points.
For the other team, right? Not for
the other team, yes. We want them. We want a bunch of them, as many as we can get. We don't want the other team to have them. I think we gave up 11 offensive rebounds off the cuff. So that's too many. I know in the first half, they had 7 second chance points. I don't know what they finished with, but 14. I can tell you 14. Okay, so
yep.
That's, to me, that's too many.
That's right.
And that's, like I said, it's early on, and there's a lot to be corrected. We don't want to be playing our best basketball right now. That's okay. Just something we got to get fixed. And I like the way this team scraps. I like the way they hustle. I like the way they compete. I don't think that that's going to continue to be an issue because of that, because of those things that this team has. The only thing that concerns me, I guess, about rebounding and second chance points is that we're not, just a huge team. So whenever we play teams with size, that could be an issue. But like I said, these guys scrap, and I think that's something we can fix very easily because rebounding is more of a want to. It's a desire. It's an effort. It's not necessarily a skill. But I think
rebounding was close. Carolina only out-rebounded Radford 37-34 in totality and 12-11 on the offensive glass.
Yep.
Okay, Pac, one more thing that we would like the Tar Heels to stop doing. I'm sure we could nitpick and find a lot more, but a big one specifically that you that stood out to you. What was it?
Easy paint touches. I think our transition defense was okay. It wasn't bad. It was just that sometimes we didn't guard the ball very well, and they got to the paint. And look, Radford hit some shots. Okay, first of all, let's start there. They're pretty good.
Yeah, get like.
And a lot of people may not realize that they're picked second in their conference behind UNC Asheville. They are a talented bunch. They hit a lot of tough shots we wanted them to take. If you're talking to any basketball coach that's analytically minded, they're going to tell you we want them to take mid-range jump shots. And Radford took a lot of them. So we were kind of getting what we wanted. They weren't as contested as we would have liked probably. And that's where I want us to stop allowing easy paint touches. We need to be there with a hand and face, making those shots a little bit tougher. But that's, like I said, that's correctable. We just got to do a better job of guarding the basketball and keep them from getting to the paint so that we don't have to worry about that as much. And at times we did. The second half in particular, we got a lot better defensively. And I think some of that was adjustment and getting into the flow of the game. But I tell you what, I think a lot of it was just the fact that we used our depth and we had fresh legs, and those guys were wearing down. And I think that paid off big time for us.
Definitely did. So that goes back to what we said about what we want to keep. We want to see those, in particular, in the first half, guys getting minutes so that the starters can play more in the second half when needed. So great stuff there, Pack. Now we got one more category we want to get to tonight as we look back on Monday's opening day victory over Radford, is what needs to start happening for Carolina that didn't. So we've looked at what they should keep, what they should stop, and now it's time to turn our attention to what they should start doing. We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode of Locked On Tar Heels, it's brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than right now to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. How about some national championship odds? Pack right now. The Tar Heels are tied with Arkansas and Gonzaga for the 6th best national championship odds at plus 3,000. I think that's some numbers that I would like to take. Leading the way are Kansas, Duke, and Purdue, tied at plus 1,100. You got to imagine, that's right, thumbs down, Pac Kilby. But you got to imagine Michigan State's odds took a little bit of a hit after that loss back on Monday night at home to the James Madison Dukes. Woof. We'll see if they can rebound from that. So, folks, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Pack, let's wrap this show up today by talking about what Carolina needs to start doing that we necessarily either didn't see them do or didn't do well enough on Monday night. What's the first thing you're looking at?
For me, it's faster starts. I've always said that like the first 4 minutes of the game and then the first 4 minutes coming out of halftime are the two most important 4-minute stretches in the game because it establishes what you're trying to do right away. And you set the tone for the rest of the game or the rest of the half with the way you played in it. And so, to me, we started the second half with great urgency. I thought we did really well coming out in the second half. The first half was a little slow. Not necessarily offensively, obviously. We started 5 for 5 from 3. We were lighting it up. But they were matching us score for score.
Yeah.
And that's where I'd like to see us be better. If we could get the urgency of the second half applied to the first half, then I think we would have seen a much sharper start from the Tar Heels. So that's got to be, an area of focus for us, is getting off to those faster starts and setting the tone for how the game's going to go.
Pac, let me ask you a question from a mindset standpoint of both the coaching staff and the players. We're in this season of the basketball season, I guess I should say, where it is first game for a lot of people. What role did jitters play in getting off to a faster, slow start on opening night?
Oh, they definitely. I mean, if you are a player and you care, it doesn't matter if it's opening night or the 37th game of the season. There's kind of some jitters involved, when the game's tipping off. You lose those pretty quick, though. You get consumed, you get wrapped up in the game, and you don't even notice that you were ever jittery or nervous. But I think, that can play both a good or positive or negative role in your game, depending on how you handle that. Like some people take those nerves and they overthink, and some people take them and it gets them fired up and fueled and ready to go. And so it just really depends on the player or the team, I guess. But there's definitely some nerves when that ball tipped off tonight, especially since some of those guys were tipping off in their first Carolina basketball game ever. How cool is that? How exciting that must have been. But there's also a lot of nerves that come with that.
I mean, too. You say some of them. It was 7 of them. 7 of them are tipping off. I mean, that's of the 11 guys that played, that's 7 of the 11. And so, I mean, it's wild. And so, the offense did what it needed to do. The defense, while Radford, again, as you said, credit for their shot making, even on tough shots, you saw the uptick in defensive urgency in the second half, whether it was Seth Trimble getting in and just doing work on that, whether it was Cormac Ryan had that really nice defensive possession, and we like to see that. But we want to see it across the board. Carolina, as you said, is a little undersized this year with what they're doing, and that means they're going to have to be all the more connected, especially with help defense. And so we're going to be watching for that. Pack, so that's the first thing that needs to start happening. Two more. The next one is free throws. We've seen Carolina in both years under Coach Hubert Davis shoot very well from the free throw line. Unfortunately, on Monday night, the Tar Heels just went 15 of 23, and really there was no one big culprit. The thing that was most encouraging before we talk about the negative of it is that Armando was 5 of 6. I love that. The thing that's negative is that not only is it just about making your free throws, but do you know how many RJ Davis shot? How many attempts he had?
I would guess 2 or 3.
None. RJ Davis did not go to the line. This is the number 1 career free throw percentage shooter in Carolina history. He's got to get to the line. So to me, it's not just about Carolina went 15 of 23 and only shot 65%. It's that RJ didn't have an attempt. That has to start happening.
Yeah, definitely. And there were a couple times tonight I actually thought he got fouled. And for whatever reason, they didn't call it. They were letting him be pretty physical around the rim at times. And so, but I agree. RJ's definitely got to get to the free throw line. And 65%, that's just not going to cut it. This team, especially since we're essentially putting 4 guards on the floor around Bacot, we should shoot the ball better from the free throw line.
Yep. And I mean, so really it's like Jalen Washington, 2 of 3, Seth, 1 of 2, Elliot, 1 of 3. He needs to hit more. Harrison Ingram was 2 of 5. I mean, that was probably the worst culprit. I think based on what you were just saying, all these guards and what we've seen from Carolina in the past couple years, I expect this to uptick. I do think this one is a one-off situation where we're going to see it get better, but you don't want to just assume that. We got to see it actually happen. Pack. The final thing that we'd like to see start happening is Carolina, in the same way that we talked about getting off to a bit of a faster start. Part of what's going to it's going to take to do that is establishing a better post presence from the beginning of the game. We obviously saw that with a lot of urgency and intentionality coming out of the halftime locker room, where Armando just started going nuts. He missed that one bunny, but outside of that, I mean, just was going wacky inside. 10 of 16 for the game. One of those was kind of that 3 that he took late. So let's call it 10 of 15 for real. And I mean, get it to your All-American and let him do work, right, Pack? Like, how does Carolina go about doing better with that going forward?
Yeah, I think just making it a priority. And that's what they did in the second half. And, man, it paid dividends, because not only was Armando thriving and feasting down low, it was just opening everybody else up too, like we mentioned before. And, when you get a guy like Armando going, man, he's hard to slow down. And it's just he does so good with that. He's great at post position, great at getting open. He's a pretty good passer out of the post too. Very patient, wise decision maker. And so it's benefits all around when we establish him as the guy in the half court setting. And what we did in the second half was fantastic. I just want to see us do that from the jump.
Yeah, I mean, because of the shooters around him, this should be the best assist numbers Armando Bacot's ever had, as long as he's kicking out at the level we expect him to. So we will see what all Carolina does with this on Sunday when they face Lehigh, who I believe lost on Monday night in their season opener. So we'll see how Carolina does with that. Of the 4 bye games that Carolina plays, Radford was the best of those 4. And so we'll see a little bit of a downtrend. Carolina should have an easier time in each of their next 2 games before they head down to Atlantis. And so we'll see that. Now, Charleston Southern, the final non-conference game, the final bye game, will be the worst team Carolina plays all year. And so we'll have that just before. Nice little reset before ACC play there. Man, Pack, the season is happening. It's regular season. It's hard to believe it. The Tar Heels are 1-0. 30 regular season games left. It flies by before you know it. Folks, we'll be back tomorrow talking with Coach Rob, getting kind of his thoughts on the game and looking forward as well. You can come join us again, as we said off the top, in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. The link to that is in the show notes. If you'd like to email the show, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. Subscribe wherever you can subscribe to podcasts, video, audio. Do it. Smash the like button so we would know you were here. And again, we'd love to hear your comments on today's show. Coach Pac Kilby and I want to remind you that it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll be right back with you tomorrow. But until then, peace.